Welcome to the 13th module. We'll start working on data link layer from now on. What is it? You remember the data link layer is a layer above physical layer and it helps connecting two immediate neighbors. If you remember our old discussion about how transmission takes place, you know that a router decides the next immediate destination, and that the data link layer constructs a frame which sends that thing to the next immediate recipient, and data in form of something called frame we know. Okay. It takes services from the physical layer to send that frame across, and very critical thing, data link layer ensures the data integrity of. So, if there is an error, make sure that the error is removed or frame is retransmitted, a correct frame is to be retransmitted in that case. One more critical requirement of a data link layer is that when a sender is sending to a receiver, a fast sender should not spam the receiver. Okay. So, it is not a flood that swamp the receiver. Receiver should be able to say, please stop, let me recover from the flood of data that you are sending. So, that kind of possibility, that kind of mechanism is provided at data link layer. We will study about all this in little more detail soon. Okay. It begins with the frame. Why the frame? In fact, you can start sending and will continue sending till the end of the data. Suppose you are downloading a 20 MB, 20 GB file. You just start from the first bit to the last bit, just do it. Why frames? Why you will have to divide that thing into frames and send? So, there is a reason for it. There are many other reasons, but one critical reason for this is that you do not require somebody to monopolize the channel. If you are sending data in form of chunks one after the other, it is possible to interleave those chunks. So, there are multiple senders can send and their data is interleaved. Okay. So, nobody is starved of bandwidth. Okay. So, that is the major reason why frames were introduced. If somebody is downloading a file for 20 GB file and the channel is occupied continuously for that period, others will have to wait for a much longer period and they may not like it, and they may not need to send only a few bytes. Okay. So, that is something we would like to avoid. The solution is frames. Okay. So, if you use frames, they are interleaved or multiplexed together, and instead of stream of data, every user will send only a small fraction. Okay. So, everybody will get their own share. The channel is actually being shared between all the users and not somebody monopolizing it. Okay. Then there are some other reasons of framing it. Now, you can't send an Ethernet frame larger than 1500 bytes because of historical reasons. Okay. Every Ethernet frame maximum data that you can send is 1500 bytes, because the first version of Ethernet had that memory which cannot accommodate more than 1500 bytes. So, that was a limit from that age. Okay. Second is restriction by operating system. So, operating system might impose some limit. Okay. Computers, operating systems usually do not impose such limits, but when you talk about IoT devices or some other devices which are connected to internet, probably a printer. For example, printer's memory is always restricted. So, it will say that you will not be sending larger than this frame. So, that is the other thing. And when you use frames, user will take turn to transmit. Okay. So, frames are interleaved. Okay. So, no user starved of bandwidth and nobody will monopolize the channel. Okay. So, the LAN card that you have in your laptop or the adapter that you have, Wi-Fi adapter that you have in your mobile phone. Okay. What do? They frame. If it is an Ethernet card, it can generate an Ethernet frame. Is a Wi-Fi adapter, it will generate a Wi-Fi frame. They are not same, they are different, and we will see the difference in due course. Okay. Maximum size also enforces what other layers can do. For example, I want to download a file. Now, that file is coming from an Ethernet device. So, I know that every frame can only have 1500 bytes as data. So, TCP segment actually which can be embedded in that must be much smaller, considering conventional default header sizes of IP and TCP to be 20 bytes each. After 1500 bytes, you will have to remove those 40 bytes, and what you get is 1460 bytes, 1460 bytes. The base size for TCP segment is 1460. So, this is the way a size at the Ethernet case or the data link layer case defines the size at the higher case. Okay. And okay, then you will have to frame. What does that mean? You will have to have some beginning part which tells us, oh, frame is beginning, the ending part is frame is over now. So, that process is known as framing, and there are few techniques to do it. One method is to use something called a flag byte in the beginning at the end. Okay. A flag byte in conventional cases is a tilt character that you probably have seen on a laptop side of your keyboard. This is that is used by most of the commercial applications, and we will be making sure that we will be using that in our own description. But a designer may choose any other character. What we believe is that there has to be some delimiter which heralds the beginning of the frame, and there is some delimiter which says it is getting over now. Okay. So, but then once you use that flag byte, the problem is that what if the data itself contains a flag byte? To handle that problem, one method is to use called byte stuffing, the other method is called bit stuffing. We will be looking at both the methods. Okay. So, using flag byte and byte stuffing, flag byte and bit stuffing are two different methods. Okay. Then you use illegal character combination for indicating the beginning at the end of the frames, and something called storing the length and sending that length. So, you know that this is the length of the frame and you read till that. Okay. So, we will be looking at each one of them in little more detail. Flag byte is a very simple method. For example, if I am sending to stop input, please enter X, then press A. Suppose this is to be transmitted. The flag byte is added at the beginning, at the end. Okay. So, here you can see that the flag byte is added. Okay, here sorry, the flag byte is added here at the end. So, when receiver starts receiving, will read this to stop this. When it encounters tilt again, understand that it is stop, it is over. So, tilt heralds the beginning as well as the end of a frame. Okay. But this will run into a problem if the data itself contain tilt inside. For example, the data is such that to stop input, please enter tilt and then press A. Suppose that is my data. So, if I follow the same technique, I will add a flag byte here and a flag byte there and send it to the receiver. Receiver receives everything, but then what will happen? We will start reading from tilt, will stop reading at this tilt. When that happens, what receiver get is this, which is incorrect. Now, how to handle that? To handle this, we need character stuffing. How that is done? That stuffing, what we do is, we always precede the normal tilt character by an escape character, okay, ASCII 27. Okay. So, escape here. So, to stop input, please enter tilt. So, this is a normal tilt and not frame end. So, we precede it by escape. Okay. So, what you get is, okay. So, you say top. So, whenever receiver starts reading, we will start from this, we will go ahead, when it gets escape, it understands the next tilt in a normal tilt and not frame end. So, we will continue doing it and continue reaching it. When it reaches gets here, it understands the frame end, and this will perfectly solve our problem. And this is actually, if you have escape inside the content, you can precede that thing with one more escape, which is shown here. Okay. For example, if you have this, if you stop, please enter escape tilt and then press escape A. Now, this is the data. Now, data contains tilt as well as the escape character. Here also we have an escape character. So, this escape is preceded by one more escape. Okay. So, here is escape is one, this is the escape is one, escape tilt is the other. So, tilt is preceded by escape is preceded by escape. Okay. This escape itself is preceded by another escape, okay, and then A. So, when the receiver starts reading, we will find first escape, it consider this escape as a normal character, When again it encounters escape, it considers tilt is a normal character. When it comes here, when read escape, it will understand the next escape is a normal character and then A. And whenever it considers get this thing, it will also understand this escape is a normal character. When it gets the tilt, last tilt, it will stop. Okay. So, this is a very simple technique, it is used by some real world protocols, but then there is a problem with this approach. One problem is when we are not using an 8 byte delimiter, okay, because tilt is a single byte character. So, you read byte by byte and add that tilt and then add escape precede to that tilt. So, it is basically you are dealing with bytes. In some cases you are not dealing with bytes, one is when you are using a bigger size data. What you need to do is to divide them into bytes and then process. So, many a times you need to devise a method of doing it. So, that is one problem. The other problem is, this is not a severe problem, this can be easily managed, but the other case which is more critical, suppose if the file is compressed. When the file is compressed, your byte boundaries are not preserved and the frame ending tilt character, tilt is basically this is tilt. This is the value of tilt, this is the ASCII value of the tilt. Okay. So, the problem is if this value has become part of 2 bytes, this is the first byte where the last part is of tilt and this is the beginning part of it. Now, none of them is a tilt character, to be very frank. When you read this is something other than tilt, this also is other than tilt, you will miss tilt, you will not be able to get that frame end. Okay. Obviously, the solution in this case is to read bit by bit, simple. You can still go ahead with escape character, but when you are dealing with bits, a simpler solution is possible. Okay. You have to read bit by bit and process bit by bit, but then there is a simpler solution. That simpler solution is called bit stuffing. How it is done? Very simple. When the sender encounters 5 consecutive ones, it pads a 0. When receiver encounters 5 consecutive ones and 0 afterwards, removes that 0. Okay. Very simple algorithm. Okay. And here are 4 cases that you will normally encounter 1 1 1 0 0 0. Now, there are 4, no 5 consecutive ones, so output remain unchanged, okay? No issues, and there are many such cases. Now, suppose input is all 8 ones, after 5 1 2 3 4 5 ones you pad a 0. So, 8 bit becomes 9 bit output. Similarly, when I have 5 ones and 0, I will pad additional 0. So, I will get again 9 bits. When I get input is this, what is this? This is a tilt character. So, after 1 2 3 4 5 I add a 0 here. Okay. So, that 0 is padded here. Now, you may be asking a question to me that these 2 cases I am padding actually 0, which is not needed. This is the case where the data contains tilt. So, I will have to convert that thing into something other than 0, other than tilt. So, I am adding 0, that is fine, but the problem is if I do not do this for all cases, how will receiver differentiate? In case receiver receiving it and this, there is no difference actually. Okay, it will have 5 1 and then 0, 5 1 and then 0. How will receiver know that this is a stuffed 0 and this is not, if it is the case? So, fine, when receiver cannot know, the simplest solution is stop in all cases and destuff in all cases by the receiver. So, that is precisely what is being done. Okay. The third method is called framing with illegal characters. This was used in the first version of Ethernet, where the Manchester encoding was used. Remember, Manchester encoding 0 is high and then low and 1 is low and then high. Then you have 2 combinations, 2 low and 2 high. Both of them are not used by Manchester encoding. So, they can be used for framing. So, when you encounter high high, you understand that the frame begins. When you encounter low low, frame ends. Okay. So, that is the other one, other method which is being used. One more method is again pretty simple method, use a count or length, okay, in the beginning. So, you say that the length is 25, so you read 25 and then 25 characters, the frame is of 25 characters, it's simple. Okay. So, it is like this. So, character, okay, and I know it is 25, I just said 25. Now, the first character itself contains value 25. Okay. So, what does that mean? I know this is the length of my file. The problem is, if this length character is corrupted, if this length character is corrupted and converted to 35, I will be reading some other part maybe of the next frame as my frame, and some character, frame character, which maybe appears as 10 somewhere in the frame. Okay. Maybe the next frame is 25 somewhere here, but I will reading that thing as a data for it, and this 10 which is innocuous character is considered as a length, and I will be reading next frame as of 10 bytes and something. Not only I will read the first frame wrong, I read all subsequent frames wrong. So, that is the problem with this length mechanism. 802.3 which is Ethernet 1 okay, uses this mechanism, but then additionally it will provide delimiters. Okay. So, this is an additional process, lot of other cases this is used, but not as a single method of framing. Okay. So, framing, and if you look at reference 1 and 2, you will be able to see this see a detailed description of the problem that it creates, which I just narrated here. Okay. The second critical of framing is one part. Framing is the first job that a data link layer will have to manage. Second, which critical part is called error. It how to manage the error. Okay. So, if the sender is sending and the receiver is receiving, if there is an error somewhere, the receiver must be able to make sure that the error does not propagate further. Okay. So, that is a very, very important point. Okay. If I am sending you 25,000 rupees, and if it is corrupted and instead of 25,000 it becomes 2,500, I may like it, but you may not. Okay. That is the point. So, errors are to be removed. Okay. Now, let us see, if sender sends this and receiver receives this, you can see that the last bit is changed. Okay. So, the error is what? Error is this. The difference between what is sent and what is received is called error. Okay. And better cabling systems, the Ethernet latest cabling systems are so good that you will hardly have an error. In one typical reference says that 1 in a 32 bit, 1 in a 32 years you will get 1 bit corrupted in Ethernet cabling system. So, is that good? Okay. So, but unlike that, wireless networks are comparatively much error prone. So, very likely to have an error in a wireless case. Okay. And that actually decides the difference between the wired and wireless layers. We will be discussing about them in little more depth later. But then errors are inevitable, you cannot eliminate errors, okay. They are bound to be there. So, you will have to have some solutions to make sure that they do not propagate further. There are two ways of doing it, handling errors. One is to flag and tell the sender that there is an error, please resend. So, sender will resend, that is one way of doing it. Second is to look at the data and correct it. Okay. So, both methods are fine. At this point of time, if you believe that correcting a frame is a better method, please hold off, we will discuss the difference later. Okay. There are two different types of errors, one is called single bit error, the other one is a burst error, collection of multiple bits errors. Here is the data that you have, and one of the data 1 is converted to 0, so this is called a single bit error. The third bit from left is corrupted. In this case, this 5 bits, some of the bits in this range are inverted, first and last are inverted, and some other bits in the range is inverted. Now, this is called burst error. Burst error is more likely in current cases. Okay. So, current transmissions, this is less likely, this is more likely. But then burst error, single bit errors are very easy to detect and correct, but burst errors may also be good. Why? Because it is a very simple thing. Suppose if you have a probability of error 1 bit error for 1500 bytes, Assume that every frame contains 1500 bytes. I have 100 frames, all 100 frames. I have 100 frames, first, second, third, 100 frames. Each one of them are 1500 bytes. Each one of them. Okay. Now, I have an error probability 1 bit in 1500 bytes and it is scattered, a single bit error. Okay. These are 100 frames. What will happen? 1 bit in every frame is most likely to be corrupted. Okay. Most of the 100 frames are corrupted. If 1 bit is wrong, the data is wrong. Okay. Instead, if I have a 100 bit burst, what is the probability? Okay, probability is that either 1 or 2 consecutive frames, okay, that 100 bits, some bits here and some bits here, or all bits belong to one frame. So, I have 1 or 2 frames corrupted, the rest 99 or 98 frames are in clear. So, burst errors are not always that bad, not as bad as they look at the first sight. Okay. Managing error, okay, requires you to use something called redundancy in data. You probably have used mobile recharge vouchers for recharging your mobile phones. You probably have seen that there is a long digit sequence of digits, 16 digits or so, that you need to type in. Have you ever tried a random number? Most of us have tried and nobody is successful. How? Why nobody is so successful? The reason is that that 16 digit number is not completely random. Some part of it depends on the other part. Okay, is calculated based on that, and unless you know that process of calculation, you will not be able to generate that thing. Okay. And those bits, additional bits which are calculated based on the other one are called redundant bits, and because of those redundant bits, nobody will be able to generate that randomly. Even if there is a mistake somewhere, that those redundant bits will be able to, again when you calculate, will not match and will be able to tell you that there is something wrong. So, the very technique is used here in making sure that you get it right. Okay. Only the genuine users are able to recharge that vouchers and not anybody. If that would have happened, all mobile companies have gone bankrupt by now. That has not happened. So, the credit goes to this mechanism, which is the technique which is also used in error handling. So, what we need? Some additional bits called redundant bits which are generated from the data. So, that if anything is different in the data, those redundant bits will be different and will flag that there is something wrong with the data. Okay. There is something called random attack is also quite interesting. Random attack is trying random bits. I have just talked about that. Okay. So, if you are learning about network security, one very critical component of security is to make sure that you are not vulnerable to random attacks. This error handling mechanism is actually extended in case of network security to make sure you are not vulnerable to those random value attacks or random attacks. Okay. Okay. One more thing which is important here, data link layer, whether a data link layer should handle or not handle errors. I said in case of Ethernet, a data link layer may not handle errors and it is just fine. Why? Because once in a 32 years a bit is lost. So, if you just go ahead and continue sending it, once in a while there is an error, in that case the TCP, remember the both cases, here there is a sender, here there is a receiver, TCP running here, TCP running here, anyway they will be matching, whatever is being sent is being checked at the other end and that is not wrong, the TCP is told to resend that. So, TCP anyway will be checking. So, you can forego error handling at data link layer and make sure TCP does that and absolutely fine. Okay. But in the other case, in a wireless case, whether the data link layer should handle it or leave it to the TCP, and this particular case is depicted to explain the problem. Okay. What if the probability of losing is 1 out of 10 frames? So, what will happen? I am sending 10 correct segments from here, this particular case, in this case the data link layer is not handling errors. Because of the probability is 1 out of 10, 9 correct segments would reach here. Okay. Here again one segment is lost, I just assume that is almost 10. So, one segment is lost. So, you receive 8 correct segments here, then 7 here, then 6 here, and eventually the receiver will only get half of these segments correct. Okay. So, the rest of them are to be retransmitted. Again applying the same logic, next case, first case 5 correct segments received, second case 2.5 correct segments, next case 1.25. Okay. So, you require few iterations of transmission to get the data home. Okay. What if data link layer handles errors? Okay. When sender sends to the first recipient one of the 10, now data link layer checks whether all frames are received correctly, you will find out that one of them is not, that is resent, okay, and received here. Here again one of the 10, so one retransmission here, one retransmission here, one retransmission on every hop. In fact, I only need one transmission every hop, that is all. Okay. In case of earlier case, in earlier case you can see that in case number 1 I need to send 5 frames on all cases, 5 into 5 total 25 retransmissions take place. Here I do not need to do it, okay. I only need to send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, point is when the error rate is that high, it is always better to use to make sure your data link layer catches errors and demand retransmission. Okay. So, that is the point. Unlike that, as I said, wired this thing networks do not need retransmission, and Ethernet like cases do not actually do it. When the error rate is high, in the case of 802.11, yes, DL handles errors. Okay. Ethernet does not handle error, will only do one thing, will receive a frame, will check if the frame is correct. If the frame is not if frame is corrupted, it will just drop that frame, will not tell the sender to retransmit, we just rely on the TCP to invite retransmission from the very sender. And as I said, the error is very less, you do not spend time on it, you can work at a pretty fast speed, and that is what precisely Ethernet is doing. Okay. Error detection, the first method that is used is called checksum, and this is very simple method. Suppose if these are the things to be sent. So, what is done? I will just add all of them, negate them and add. So, when the receiver receives the content and add everything together, will get 0. If the receiver gets 0, data is fine. If not, data is not. So, this is method called checksum, simplest method. But the other method which is prevalent in Ethernet like network is called cyclic redundancy check or CRC. Now, that is little complicated. So, let us try to, but it is basically very simple division, okay. But because it is applied in a little complicated fashion. Okay. How it is done? It is done using something called modulo 2 arithmetic. Modulo 2 arithmetic is also very simple. Adding or subtraction is same, it is basically XOR. So, you can see that when two numbers are subtracted or added, you actually XOR them and you get this. Okay. So, if you subtract, add or subtract, you will get the same answer. So, this is by modulo 2 arithmetic, and when you divide a number by some other number, here this is basically a frame. These 4 bits, the last 4 bits are padded, and I am actually dividing a number by this number. Okay. So, this is my frame. So, what I am doing is I am dividing the frame by a divisor, a number, this number 10101 which I have used here is called a divisor. So, I am dividing it, and here this subtraction is modulo 2. So, you can see that 1 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 1 is XORing it, okay, and 0 1 1. So, I am taking 1 from here. So, I get this 0. Okay. So, here eventually I get a reminder as 1 1 0 0 is my reminder, and I am adding a subtracting remainder from this number. Remember, when you subtract a remainder from a number, that number becomes divisible by the divider. For example, I divide 7 by say 30. So, I get 7 4 28, so 2. So, this is my remainder. If I subtract 2 from 30, I get 28. So, 28 is divisible by 7. So, it's the same thing I am doing here. So, I subtract 1100 from this. So, last 4 digits are 0000. So, basically the same thing, and last 4 digits as 01100. Okay. So, that is what I am doing. Once I do that, I will be able to send. Okay. And I am representing this binary number as something called polynomial. Now, polynomial means what? See here, this is, for example, this is a number. This is 2 raised to 0, so there is x raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, that is x raised to 1, x raised to 2, x raised to 3. So, this is x raised to 3 plus x raised to 2 and x raised to 0. So, that is how you represent this binary number as polynomial representation. Same way it is being represented, and division is done. Okay. Now, suppose if sender is sending this and receiver is receiving this, the difference is that this bit is the difference. So, error is 100, okay, and the sender is the sender polynomial is represented as this, receiver polynomial is represented as this, and the difference is 100. So, sender polynomial plus 100 is receiver polynomial. This is how it is represented. Same way here. Okay. Now, I am again going to divide. Okay. Remember, the Px is divisible by the generator polynomial, call it Gx. So, this is divisible, but the Qx that the receiver receives, this is critical. If this is divisible, error will go unnoticed, because receiver will do what? It will divide the incoming polynomial by Gx, and if it is divisible, will accept. If it is not divisible, will not accept. So, our discussion should be based on Ex divisible by Gx. If it is divisible, then it is a problem. We should make sure that Gx should be as long as possible, should not divide Ex. Okay. How that is done? There are some ways of doing that. Okay. First, divisor must be of more than 1 terms. Okay. If it is so, all 1 bit errors will be caught. If it does not have any divisor, any factor, the divisor does not have any factor, all x raised to k plus 1, okay, where the k is the maximum frame length. That is this is a second requirement. If this is the case, for example, x raised to 1 plus 1, x raised to 2 plus 1, x raised to 3 plus 1, and so on, for the value of k. K is, in case of Ethernet, it is 1500. So, for x raised to 0 in case of Ethernet, for x raised to 0 to x raised to 1500 plus 1, okay, this should not be the one of the factors of the divisor. If this is the factor, then it will have a problem. Otherwise, if it is not a factor, we will be able to detect any 2 bit errors in that frame, any 2 bit errors. Okay. If x plus 1 is a factor, will not divide any odd bit errors, odd number of bits, 5 bits in error, 7 bits in error, 11 bits in error, they will be caught if x plus 1 is a factor. Okay. And there is something called irreducible polynomial which does not have factors. Okay. Apart from x plus 1, if you do not have any other factor, will only be divisible. It is like prime number. So, if you are dividing anything by prime number, for example, 13. Okay. If you divide a number by 13, that number is perfectly divisible by 13, okay, then nothing else, 26 and so on, all multiples of 12, 13 can only be divisible, nothing else will be. So, same way irreducible polynomials are using, then only multiples of that can only be divisible and nothing else. Okay. And many commercial systems, including Ethernet, are using CRC. Okay. I am not described this thing in little more detail, telling why it is so, why is this, but you can again refer to both references, reference 1 and 2 for details. In this module, we will not look at those details. We will just say that if divisor contains all this, the divisor is really good, and there are such divisors available and used in practice. With that, we conclude this module. Let me quickly recap what we have seen in this module. We looked at the data link layer, we started talking about data link layer, we started learning about the duties of data link layer, and we looked at framing, and then we looked at error handling, and then we looked at how to handle errors using CRC method. And at the end, we have seen when we use CRC, what is the best mechanism to have a divisor, a good divisor, what are the characteristics of a good divisor. With that note, we will conclude. Thank you all friends.